What is good, everybody? Welcome into the Bluebloods official podcast of FCS Football Central on SI, brought to you by FanDuel. And we are joined today by a very special guest, man. As soon as the announcement was made, I knew I had to get my guy on the show. I've been following his journey at West Florida. We have the head coach of the Argos, Kaleb Nobles. He was a starting quarterback the first year of this program. He's won a national championship as an assistant, and now he's taking West Florida to new heights, joining the Division I level. Coach Nobles, man, again, appreciate you joining the show, man. How are we feeling today?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to be able to get on and talk about UWF football. This is a place that is obviously near and dear and special to my heart, and I'm excited to be on this journey and be a lot of firsts of this journey, and so certainly excited to be part of this run and excited to be taking UWF to the next level of Division I football.
So this is the easiest question of the show. We'll get into some harder stuff in future questions, but what was just your initial reaction, man, when the AD president set you down and said, this is the move we're going to make. We're going from Division II to FCS. You have a long history with this program, man. You were there when it started. What was your initial reaction when you were informed that this was official, that the move was going to finally happen?
Yeah, I was excited, first of all, because I feel like this is a place that, and I've said this publicly, that whenever we do make the transition, that this is some place that can be special, right, and a really good place. It's already nationwide getting recognition, but even more now on the Division I level. And so I was excited. I was ready to leave the meeting very quick and get back to work and do a lot more work and do things. But we're working every day. We've been working for years to just be great and play great football. And it doesn't matter the level, it doesn't matter the division or the opponent. Our mission is always the same. And trying to build champions for life, UWF, is a big thing for us. And that's not just on the field. So our guys are excited. I'm excited about this. And I got a great administration that is very aligned in decision making, and so I'm excited to be a part of this journey with them as well.
When you look back at where this program was, obviously because you have a unique perspective, right? You were a player, assistant, and now you're the head guy. You're the CEO of the program. When you look back at 2016, when this program was initially starting, you got here as a starting quarterback, to compare to now, what are some of the biggest differences when you look back at that year one? And did you see this sort of trajectory where UWF goes from a new program to national championship to now Division I so quickly?
Yeah, I definitely thought that this place could rise fast. My background, my dad was a high school football coach for over 30 years. And so when I transferred from my previous place to come to UWF as a player, I really kind of I just wanted to go somewhere and play, get an opportunity to get on the field and studied kind of who was going to be a good team, but also give me a chance to play. I had one season left and was ready to go, get an opportunity to be on the field as much as I could. And so studying West Florida and really finding out about it, I had played against the previous head coach, Pete Shinnick, when they were at North Carolina Pembroke when I was at Valdosta State. And so I knew about him. I'm a football junkie and kind of saw what they were doing at UWF and been practicing for 6 months. And so I reached out to them and came on a visit and was like, oh, my goodness, this place is going to be a gold mine just for recruiting standpoint. Being at the beach, my office is less than 10 miles from the beach, right? So that's easy to sell. And then so going on down there to the beach and seeing that in a visit, but then also kind of knowing, I grew up in North Florida almost till high school and then moved to Georgia. So I know this is a hotbed, right, of talent, right? The Southeast is elite talent. But the state of Florida had a feeling, right, if these guys can recruit and get the right players out of the state of Florida, man, this thing could take off pretty quick. So then being a part of a journey to go to a national championship, year 2 of a program, and my first year coaching as a graduate assistant, and then winning a championship in year 4, I think shows that, right? It shows the work of a lot of people behind the scenes and a lot of coaches and players that have been doing some really good stuff for years. We got thrown to the fire quick, and our guys responded and answered with a really good answer to the challenges as we did in those first couple of years.
We've had Coach Shinnick on the show. We had him right when he took the Townsend job, and he talked a little bit about this. But I want to get your perspective, because at that point you were an assistant and you've kept that winning culture going. When you look back at how hard it was to create a winning culture from scratch, right? You guys had no histories. There wasn't, you came into a job and it was, we have 15 national championships on the wall. We have all this history. You guys got there in 2016 and said, we're the ones writing these older chapters that people are going to look back on. How hard was that in terms of building that culture? And for you being with the program all these years, has it been easier to sustain that culture now?
Yeah, that's a great question from a lot of different levels. I think from a coaching standpoint, right? I came in here as a player, was on the first team, and played quarterback that first year. I loved it from a playing perspective because I was the older guy. I was 22, going on 23 that year, literally on a bus with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds that I always tell everybody we just didn't know we didn't know, right? We were just out there playing and having fun and didn't know what good was, right? Didn't know what talent was on the D2 level. So then you mess around and you beat some teams, beat some ranked teams that year, beat a couple teams that are in the conference, still in the conference, not in the conference, now in the United with us. And then as a coach, right, I think it's been awesome, right? The first 2 years, just for our guys being able to experience a lot of things and truly kind of see the fruits of their labor, of the work we put in. There was a lot of behind the scenes work those first couple of years that didn't get any recognition, but really starts to pay off, right? When you make a national championship in year 2, fastest in NCAA history, you play for a national championship and win one, right? Your fastest in NCAA history, year 4, was really an accumulation of just a lot of really good work. Coach Shinnick is a phenomenal head coach. I take a lot of lessons and things that I learned from him and it's translated over into what I do as a head coach. But I try to make it unique, create my own spin because I'm not him and he's not me. And so, but this place is, if you do it the right way, right, you can win with a lot of talented players from the Southeast, but there really is a lot of really good kids and a lot of good young men in our program that are becoming great people, right? And not just football players, but people. And what I thought that's our goal at UWF is to produce champions for life, right? And when you go to UWF and you go up to the field house, our gym, I mean, you figure out pretty quickly, hey, you need to win because this whole place wins, right? We got 11 national championships in our whole athletic department. We got 136 conference championships at UWF. So you better figure out a way to win. Otherwise you're the outlier, right? So not a lot of pressure on, hey, let's get this done early, right? But otherwise you're going to stand out pretty quick.
And kind of beat me to my next question, as we know this is once you start having success, it becomes the expectation, and it's a privilege to have pressure, right? We if you don't have any pressure, no one expects you to be any good, no one expects you to win, and that's boring. But coach, these fans that come watch you guys on Saturday, they're expecting national championships, they're expecting semifinal runs, they're expecting playoffs. What's for you looking ahead and kind of setting this blueprint on moving up? What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that you guys and your staff have or will face sustaining that success through this transition?
Yeah, I think, just navigating the new opponents and new territories and new people who have been the champions and the conference champions on, the FCS level. It's really given us an opportunity to sit back and I study a bunch of other people's rosters and other people, how they really build their roster, whether it be transfer portal or high school, where they're from, areas they're from, kind of size ranges of a lot of things. And so I think that'll be one of the biggest things is us just kind of paying attention to, okay, what are the top dogs doing? How are they doing this? And how are they sustaining this? How are they building it year after year, pulling from high school, pulling from junior colleges, pulling from transfers? How do you build that? And I really think the state of Florida and Alabama and Georgia, the states that touch us here, there's so many kids that go play really good football, or they want to stay home and play close to home and be in UWF. So there's a lot of things that we can do positively that we have been doing as a Division II. And I think now that we can offer some different things and do some different, offers wise, right? Now we can say, hey, we can keep these guys here. We're not going to lose those recruiting battles. So obviously I think the big thing that you get once we get out of this transition and can make have opportunities to make the playoffs, right, is going to be studying, okay, let's go be great, trying to compete for the conference championship, make the playoffs, but how do you make a run, right? And then you might want to make a run, you got to go up north probably at some point or play somebody up north in the valley, right, to go win, right? So just studying those guys up there and trying to see long-term, okay, what do we got to look like getting off the bus to go beat people like that?
I think it's interesting because I've got to watch some of y'all's games. Obviously, you're right down the road from me, Pensacola and Mobile. I mean, it feels like we're in the same state almost because it's really not a long drive at all. But For people who are listening to this interview and haven't seen West Florida play under Kaleb Nobles, can you give me just a brief rundown of what the offensive and defensive identity is for West Florida? Because I think people are curious, right? Are you going to be more of an air raid? Are we a downhill rushing, a power rushing attack? What's the defense going to look like? Just as you kind of look at your roster now, what's the identity going to be on each side of the ball?
Yeah, I think every head coach is probably gonna have a different answer, and you got identities, but I think also it depends on the roster that you have built, right? And we recruit guys to play our brand of football, which is toughness, right? Which is chasing the football, which is accountability, discipline. But all those players are different, right, in certain ways, and so we're always going to mold our basically our mindset and our team around what we have, right? But we try to recruit to a certain mold. So we're gonna be effective on offense. We're going to take what they give us, right? We're going to push the ball downfield when the opportunities present themselves. But we're going to be about running the football, right? In the Bible, it says, "Lo, I'll be with you," right? So we're going to keep that ball down the ground and be smashing off football, running whenever we need to. And on the same thing, right, on the defense side of the ball, our first thing is stop the run, right? You got to be great stopping the run because that gives you so many other opportunities on second and long, third and long to pin your ears back and get to the quarterback. So we're going to be try to be exciting on both sides of the ball, create TFLs, create interceptions, create sacks, right? Those are the things that gets offenses behind the chains, and then go win the turnover margin, right? Is a big thing for both sides of the ball, and also try to create some scoring opportunities for our offense, or do it on special teams when you have those opportunities. So it all starts at the quarterback position, right? You got to be a great quarterback, have a trigger man. We've been blessed to have some really good quarterbacks here at UWF. I've been blessed to coach some good ones. Thank goodness we've gotten a lot better at quarterback since I played here because I was not great compared to all these other guys. So it's a great place to be, and it gives a lot of opportunities to recruit guys to fit what we're trying to be at UWF.
It's an interesting thing having the interview when we did because most of the coaches I speak to right now are in the midst of spring practice. You're in a unique spot where you guys are done now. Had your spring game about a month ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So you're a little bit removed now. Looking at your roster, which positional groups do you feel like took the biggest step forward this spring for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think our quarterbacks played very well. We got a couple guys that are competing for the starting job. Obviously lost a very good player, Marcus Stokes, who's at Memphis now, and really good things for 2 years for us. Our offensive line really made some very good strides. We had to go replace a couple starters off the O-line to graduation, and then two guys to the portal. And so that was the big thing. We tried to recruit as many guys because we know, and I've learned over the years that, hey, you're going to win up front, right? If you're not good in the trenches, you don't have a shot, right? So those guys really took a good step. Our secondary was really good this spring, did a lot of really good things, got a lot of older guys in that room that have played a lot of good football, maybe here or other places. So those guys have made some very good strides, and those are units that I'm excited that are going to be taking us into this transition this year.
I don't want to ask, who were necessarily the standouts, but I think right now you guys have probably a group of guys that have established themselves as leaders of the program. Who are some of your cornerstone pieces on each side of the ball that myself in FCS media who's going to be listening to this, and also fans who may be trying to get to know the program, who are going to be your cornerstone pieces on offense and defense going into 2026?
Yeah, offensively, we got our starting running back, who's a very good player. TJ Lane had a really good couple of years. He's going to be a junior this year. He was all conference in the Gulf South here. Very good player, very effective downhill runner that has good speed. He's getting faster by the day. Our tight end, Jake Robinette, is a very good player. Had almost, I think, the most receiving yards in school history as a tight end, and we were able to use him in the passing game more than we ever have. And so he's a very good player. And then on defense, got some really, really good guys, some good players. Eli Webb is a very good defensive lineman who's had a great spring for us. Rod Webb, right, not related at all, but really good player as well. Rod was a very good corner for us last year. Jamari Dickens is a starting safety as well that's back for us, who's a very good player. So having to replace linebackers, we had elite linebackers this past year on our roster, so having to go replace those guys. We had some guys step up this spring, and we think will be starters for us. So a lot of new faces for us around here, but I think every program in the country is probably saying the same thing. So we are working every day to get those guys ready to be able to go on this onslaught of a season that we got coming up.
Was there a position, because I know obviously when y'all announced the move, you said you and your staff went and studied other rosters and kind of what the makeup were for the top contenders, was there a position or anywhere that you guys felt like needed to address the roster in the spring and or moving forward? Is there any approaches y'all are going to change in terms of recruiting, or maybe get bigger at a certain position or look for a different body type? Were there any big takeaways from that roster evaluation?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think you at the end of the day, right? You're looking for big people on the line of scrimmage, right? Big people move people, right? Is a cliche thing to say, but it's the truth, right? And that doesn't change at all, right? D1, D2, D3, NAI. If you can find the biggest guys that can move well and move other people, that's a big thing, right? So we're evaluating that every single day, trying to see if there's a size requirement or a restraint that we need to get to. I mean, you look at some of those teams up north, right, that you're going to play at some point in the playoffs outside of outside of your conference. Our conference is elite, right? And we gotta go play them and win, figure out how to even give ourselves a chance to play teams up north. So our conference is very good, and it's very comparable to those teams up north as well. As you ain't going to find no lineman or D lineman that are 6'1" or 6'2" much, right? You're going to have to go find right guys that fit the size. You're going to be 294, 295 plus, right, on both sides of the football. So those are things that you have to study, right? But at the end of the day, if you can find good football players and they can help you win and make plays on both sides of the football, it's hard to turn those down. And we've been blessed to have a lot of those guys here already, but guys that we're also recruiting in whether it be the portal or junior college ranks right now or in high school come December and February.
I think it's so important, especially with the D2 to FCS transition. You want to see programs invest, right? To you got to pay to win at the end of the day, especially in this age of football. You've seen Tarleton do it. I think Abilene Christian's done a really good job of it. I think you saw North Dakota State when they joined, right? They're not here anymore, but when they joined, they did a really good job. South Dakota State has done the same thing. I think you see West Georgia, a former rival, doing it pretty well. They won 8 games last year. When you look at the administration, you guys are building a new stadium. You guys are investing in facilities, training tables, building a competitive roster. How much cohesion do you have with the AD and president on, listen, where you can go to them and say, this is what we need. We have national championship expectations. This is the new standard. Like, talk a little bit about just the communication between you and the administration on investing into this program, and I guess also too the fan support in the community, because that is also important, and having them donate into the program and be invested in what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think, like you said a second ago, just the administration, right, is a big piece of it. You got to figure out, make sure that you're in alignment of what my thoughts are and what we need to do to be successful. And then their opportunities and visions for us to be able to go financially afford that, right, and go do that. And so my phone has been hot the last couple of weeks of just talking to other coaches and picking the brains and ideas of other coaches. Hey, is there something you guys do? They can't tell me everything, right, but they're telling me a lot of stuff that, hey, we need to get to and do that. To be honest, we're closer than you would think, right? Transitioning from D2 to D1. We've been blessed with great facilities. If you could see out my window, right, the glare is kind of taken away, but there's cranes and tractors everywhere out here building a brand new part of the stadium. We're building a brand new jumbotron right here on the north side opposite of my office that'll be done this season coming up. So we have a lot of growth, right? It feels pretty metaphorical that, hey, I'm watching this happen right outside while I'm inside trying to help build this thing as well, too, as far as going D1. So we're excited about the growth. We got a great administration. Everybody looks at our president or athletic director, but we really also have a great entire athletic department, our compliance directors, right, athletic trainers, athletic communication people that are doing a phenomenal job, that they don't get as much of the recognition, but they're the ones that are in the trenches really figuring out eligibility and academics and things like that are important, right, when you make this transition. So we got a lot of investment in those areas that are being taken care of behind the scenes. And the community support is awesome. And you said you live in Mobile, so you can kind of see it from a distance. But we got a lot of people. We're a fairly young university. I mean, barely around 60 years old university-wise. Only been playing football, 9 seasons, 10 years, taking COVID away. But, man, we got a lot of really good things going on, a lot of good alumni that's a younger alumni that's excited about the future of UWF, athletics in general. And so it's helping, right? It's doing a lot of really good things in the public that's helping us get a lot of support in the community.
Looking at your just coaching trajectory, man, I mean, you had a quick rise to a head coach. I think your only stop outside of West Florida was those 2 years you spent at Clemson. Looking back at that experience with Dabo, you guys win an ACC championship your last year, if I'm not mistaken. what's your biggest learning experiences from your 2 years that you spent at Clemson that you've been able to bring back and kind of and help you mature as a head coach and build this program how you want to?
Yeah, I think, I got to take a lot of really good lessons from Coach Shinnick, obviously, here and see how he did it at the D2 level, and then go see Coach Sweeney, what he does at Clemson and the success that he's had. And honestly, it confirmed to me a couple different things, right? Nothing really learned, but just confirmed as far as, all right, Coach Shinnick did it a certain way, Coach Sweeney does it a certain way. And you got to be unique, right? And you got to trust have conviction about what you're doing, right? And trust that it may not be working today, right? But you gotta, if you have good things and a good plan, right, you gotta trust those things. And at the same time, you gotta be yourself, right? I can't try and be somebody else. Coach Sweeney is a phenomenal person, right? He's what you see on the outside is times 10, right, on the inside. You talk about just a great person to be around, have fun, right? Work hard, right? Does everything you're supposed to do the right way, and he pushes, right, everybody else around him and try to hold them to that same standard. So I love Coach Sweeney to death. He's been a great friend of mine, a great sounding board on some questions that I've had for him over the last 3 years as a head coach. And so he's been a great resource information for me, the same way Coach Shinnick has.
You talked about the recruiting landscape a little bit earlier and just the hotbed you're in. And you guys, and listen, I've been screaming it. I feel like more kids in Mobile should be getting FCS offers, and you guys have a ton of kids from Mobile that have come through West Florida in particular. But what's been your and your staff's recruiting strategy, just to give the people some insight? Are we leaning more toward the portal? Are we going high school? I have noticed, I think I looked at your signing class this year, Coach. You guys signed like almost 100% out of Florida, it feels like. I mean, everybody came from in-state. And then while you talk about portal versus high school, how important is it to build those relationships on the Florida high school recruiting circuit, which are very, very close-knit, kind of rivals Texas a little bit, where, you got to know who you know. Talk a little bit
Right.
about y'all's recruiting strategy at West Florida.
Yeah, I think it's hard to sit here and say, oh, we're going to be mass portal or mass high school. The 4 classes we've high school signed since I've been here, we have signed 96 high school kids, right? Because when I first got back here, right, being able to see the landscape of college football on the FBS level, the Power 4 level, there's a lot of people that are just exclusively using the portal, right, from the Power 4 and the Group 5. So there's a trickle-down effect to that, right? So now, before the portal era, right, kids that were signing, Power 4 are maybe going G5 now, right? Kids that were going G5, before the portal are going FCS, right? So now we've been able to sign a trickle-down effect of that unfortunately it's left a lot of very good high school players out in the cold and getting offers pulled late that now, I say unfortunately for them, but it's given us our ability to go sign them, right, and go bring them here. And then what it's done is it's raised our level of play. The amount of freshmen and sophomore that we play every year is a pretty high number, right, because they're very good quality players. We signed really good kids out of high school the first 5, 6, 8 years of our program, right? But now we can even elevate that even more and tell those guys, hey, man, you can come here and play as a true freshman, as a true sophomore, and give yourself a chance to go earn other opportunities on the field here at UWF and get as much playing time as you want to. So we have historically recruited Florida and Alabama, just being the 2 states that are close to us or touch us. Alabama is obviously it's tuition rates. You got to factor that in when you're a Division II program and all that. But so it's been great for us. We've signed some good players out of Mobile over the years. It's closer to get to Mobile than it is to get any other major city in Florida for us. So
Yeah.
I got to tell everybody, hey, don't forget, we're Central Time Zone, right? We're coming over from Orlando, Tampa, Miami, Tallahassee, all those big cities, Gainesville, Jacksonville, that we recruit from. Hey, you're going to gain an hour coming this way. So it's it's a unique thing for us. We've tried to flip recruiting on its head and go sign the best high schoolers and then supplement with transfers, right? Because a big thing for me, right, is I want to sign the best kids we can about a 3 to 4 hour radius from here, as far as the state of Florida and Alabama. And then we'll transition into Georgia a little bit more this year, high school recruiting, because there's a buy-in, right? If you sign somewhere that you know of, that you've grown up around, you give yourself a chance to, man, I really like this place, and I want to make this place special, while I'm here, because I know the place. I got a familiarity with UWF. So we will always take the best players, and year by year, I think any head coach will tell you, I mean, you got to evaluate your roster almost every day, right, and see what do I got to go get to give us a chance to be successful now, but then years in the future as well.
How many kids from your freshman class were able to be on campus for spring practice this year?
We had 2 early enrollees.
Okay.
So the lion's share of them will be here this summer. I was working with some guys this morning, making sure they're good on housing and meals and things like that for the summer. When you're a D2, right, you don't have as many early enrollees, right? So signing these guys, we didn't sign any high school kids in December, right? You can't really. We brought a couple guys in who just wanted to start classes early and be here. So 2 players, we had a quarterback and an offensive lineman, but one from Tallahassee and then one from Pace, which is about 10 minutes north of here. So easy opportunity for those guys to get here.
I would tell anyone listening to the interview, go look at the class. I mean, for you guys to sign, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jason was a Farfan, led the country in sacks last year as a high schooler. I think
Yes,
31, if I'm not
yes, sir.
mistaken. Insane for him to be now playing FCS next year. I mean, that's usually, like you said, that's a trickle down effect where that, I mean, Jason might have been a G5 guy probably 10, 15 years ago
Right.
coming out of high school. But coach, I want to look back real quick, just some nostalgia here. I told you before the show, my guy Trent Archer, who I played with in high school, was the #1 linebacker on the 2019 team winning a national title. And I remember when it happened being in Mobile, how crazy it was on the news because I mean it was only, like you said, what, 3-4 years into the
One
program
season. Yes,
history.
sir.
You were assistant on that team. What went into making that 2019 team so special, and how were you guys able to make the? Because I don't think people who don't watch D2 football get you guys beat Ferris, you guys beat Valdosta. I mean, you guys beat some heavy hitters and did it all on the road throughout the
It did.
playoffs too
It
until
did.
the
Yep.
championship. How special was that team? And just looking back now, what all went into that?
Well, I can tell you some of these gray hair that I got on my head right now are started back in 2019 because very good team, right? A 5-game playoff stretch on the road. We played Wingate, at Valdosta, at Lenoir-Rhyne, at Ferris, and then on the road in the championship we played Minnesota Mankato in McKinnell, Texas. So, and the gray hairs came from I was the travel coordinator on top of coaching quarterbacks as well. So we're finding out. I mean, I'm finding out Monday and Tuesday travel plans while I'm trying to break down and scheme up the other team as well too. So we had just a great team of guys that it was a perfect mix of guys that have been here, right? A lot of juniors and seniors that had literally been here since 2015. 2015 just practicing. 2016, right? First season playing football. 2017, went to the national championship and lost it and very close to winning it. Played in 2018, had an okay year. And in 2019 was their really year of like, man, I'm the senior. I'm the first senior class really to play here. And there's just so much buy-in. That was the funnest stretch of games, right? We lost to Valdosta in the regular season very late, right, on a late drive. And honestly, it was the best thing for us, right, because they were #1 in the country. I think when we beat them in the playoffs, they had won 27 or 28 games in a row. Really good team. I mean, unbelievable team, and had to play almost perfect to beat them in the playoffs. But it was good for our guys to see that in the regular season and say, all right, that's the #1 team in the country right across that sideline. And we played atrocious in the first half in the regular season and still beat them or almost beat them, right? So gave ourselves a chance to really wake up and say, all right, if we play our best, we just show up every week and play our best, we can give ourselves a chance to make a little run here. So we beat Wingate in the first round, and then we had to go back to Valdosta, which was about a 4-week span. And so we were familiar with it, and it was a great game. And then you go beat Lenoir-Rhyne, go beat Ferris, which was about 22 degrees at kickoff. And I knew we were going to be okay in the weather up there because you get out there and we got all these cats from Florida and Alabama that aren't used to that certain weather. I can tell you that. The snow was absurd, but they're out there with no shirts on, sleeveless hoodies running around, sleeveless shirts. And I'm like, all right, we're going to be okay, right? And then have a quarterback we did too. I mean, our quarterback was a very good player. He's playing in the UFL right now for a couple of years. So he was a really good player, obviously, and threw for over 4,000 yards that year, 40 touchdowns. So he certainly made me a better coach right that season than I probably was at the time, just how talented he was.
Looking back at your coaching career, who are 2 or 3 guys that you feel like were most impactful in influencing you and shaping you as a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, specifically, right, quarterback room. I've coached quarterbacks pretty much my whole career. Mike Beaudry, right, was our first quarterback here after me. He took us to the national championship in 2017. He had worked here all 2015, 2016. He got hurt in 2016. He might have started over me probably if he hadn't got hurt. So I'm kind of thankful he got hurt, and I'll tell him that too. But I got to hire him, right? His first coaching job in 2023 on my staff as a GA, and he did a great job. He's working up at Cincinnati right now, but he's really been influential as far as like, man, I get to see the opportunity, the impact you can make as a coach to help those guys right in the next step of life. Austin Reed obviously is a very good player. I don't know that I'm sitting in this chair doing this interview without a guy like him and the impact he's made on my career. Pee Wee Jarrett, very good player. Marcus Stokes, right? Obviously, really good quarterback who has done a lot of really good things. Got 2 years left to play D1 football. So guys like that have been awesome. There's a slew of guys, man. If I had all day and all you had all day to listen to everybody that I've had a chance to coach, some really good players at Clemson that were just the elite of the elite talent. I was there with DJU and Kate Klubnik, who great players, right? But you went to phenomenal human beings, just great guys, great men. And it was cool. It's cool to see just different levels, right? D1, FCS, right? D2. Good ball is good ball, right? And good people are good people, right? So if you can just find the good players that want to do things the right way, you give yourself a chance to win. And those guys have really made a big impact on my career as well.
The last few questions. One, just kind of throwing this out there. Have you talked to Coach Shinnick now that you've made the transition? And can we get a home and home set up? I think Townsend coming down to Pensacola, that would sell out, man. I think the fans would love to see Townsend versus West Florida.
Yeah, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me that, I'd be a rich man. I can tell you that. But yeah, we've definitely talked. Right, he's been a great sounding board for me because he's made the transition up to FCS, and so I've talked to him up probably once every 2 weeks just to pick his brain on some stuff. We talk a lot. Right, he's been a great mentor to me and a great friend of mine that I know that he'll answer the phone almost every time that I call, and same for me because he's made a huge impact on my life. Gave me my first coaching job and didn't think I was going to coach, right? I did a job interview for medical supply sales at Starbucks in Valdosta, Georgia, and halfway through I was ready to rip the coat and tie off and said, I can't do this. I gotta coach ball. And so I called him in typical fashion. He said, I told you so. I said, yeah, I know, coach. So he's a great friend of mine and somebody that I love to death. And we might be working on something, might have something behind the scenes, talking to, we got to get him to come down to West Florida first before we go up to Baltimore.
Yeah. That's a fact. Well, luckily though, without a conference, maybe it won't be 20 degrees up there. Y'all won't play them in like November, anything like that.
A lot better than November.
Let's get a week 0 game. Late August would be perfect to go up to Baltimore for that. But Coach, the last two questions. One, I haven't been able to go to a game. I know we talked before. Like this year, I already got 2 games circled. I want to get out to a game and see what it's like. But for fans who might be wondering, what is it like on Saturdays, man? What is the game day experience like over in Pensacola for a West Florida game?
Yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal experience, right? This place transforms on game day to be something that you are like, man, we put all this stuff out here for this game that we typically don't have. We practice out here behind me. Guys are out there working out right now, which I love to see behind my camera, getting some extra work in. But we transform this place. There's food trucks everywhere. There's people running around. There's kids playing football on the hill. This year will be a little bit of a fun year because we're in the middle of construction, right? So we'll be doing construction on our home side, building a press box, building a new set of bleachers on that side. So all the home bleachers will be moving to the visitor side this year. And so all the crowd will be on that side the whole time. So our sideline behind us, I'll have no fans behind me for a year. So it'll be a unique year coaching-wise that I'm excited about. But the stadium is awesome, right? Support is awesome. Fans are great. I think I tell everybody we're in a great area market because Florida State usually doesn't play the same time as us. They're 3 hours away. Alabama's over 3 hours away. South Al's the closest team. A lot of our games don't really cross over with their game time. So we have a great market, right? A great fan support that shows up and does a lot of really good things. And this place, when you come over here, you're going to be excited and shocked, and it'll be even better, once we have the stadium complete with no construction after this year.
The last question, Coach, and we always end our interviews with this, and it's interesting because you've kind of, I guess, been in this era of college football, right? It's not like a thing where you used to coach back in another era of football and had to adjust, but you've kind of been able to build your championship culture, your coaching philosophy in this age of football. How do you balance your non-negotiables, your pillars of your culture or your coaching philosophy with the evolution of college football where, Coach, we can have a rule change as we're talking right now and you got to pivot in some way? How do you balance those non-negotiables along with staying flexible and evolving with the game?
Yeah, I think you got to stay up with the times, right? I'm I'm obviously not a very old guy. I'm 32, gonna be 33 this year. And so I have a staff that's also very similar ages. I'm one of the younger guys on my staff, but my staff does a great job of taking the messages that I want and turning it into how they wanted to get the message across. But like you said, the non-negotiables, the program values, the core values that we're going to stick to, right? Don't change, right? How you communicate that? They're the head coach of their position group, so they got to get those ideas and values communicated. But at the end of the day, right, we got to be a team, right? And so I relish, right, having a younger staff because I think it gives us an opportunity to, relate to those guys a little bit closer than there's a larger gap, right? So some of my coaches will listen to the same music that the players listen to, right? So you can just relate to them, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to coach them, right? And I've figured out and learned that, man, you can coach these guys as hard as you want to, but they don't know you love them, right? And they can't tell you love them, right? They ain't gonna do much for you, right? So you gotta just be a man with them, right? And talk to them and make them understand, hey, man, I'm gonna coach you hard, right? But that doesn't define like my relationship with you. And in the end of the day, man, if they know you love them, right, and they know that you care about them, that you got their back, right, when it matters the most, they're gonna be great players for you, and they'll do whatever you ask them to do.
Coach, I really appreciate this. As soon as you guys announced the news and it kind of leaked out the week before, everybody who knew we were doing this coaching series was like, if you don't have Coach Nobles on, what are y'all doing? Like, y'all need to reach out immediately. So I sent the email, I think 30 minutes after y'all made it official to get this set up. So I really appreciate you, man. I'm looking forward to coming over to Pensacola to check out a game. Guys, make sure to go follow Coach Nobles on all social media. Make sure to go follow the new UWF football page. You're going to need it, man, as they make their transition to Division One. And we'll make sure to have Coach Nobles on again closer to the season and throughout the year. But for Coach Kaleb Nobles, myself, the Blue Bloods, FCS Football Central on SI, we are out for right now.